The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Fast am I. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Last open line for a few days tomorrow. Paul Burgess is on talking about renewable energy, as will be Lamara Crane, the leader of the Isle of Man Green Party. On Friday, Laurie Hooper's in, DHSC Minister, and next Monday, Claire Barber will be on with Scott Gallagher. Claire, of course, is DEFA Minister, and Scott is the Chief Exec. So, last open line for a while. Get in touch, text, email, call and WhatsApp for whatever's on your mind. And lots of messages we didn't get to yesterday, some of them regarding the 8 schools that were going to be closed but aren't going to be closed. Oh, it was proposed that they'd be closed because of the funding report that was submitted to the government. Well, they wanted the report, got the report, and then said that the 8 schools that would have been closed under the report aren't going to be closed. Did you keep up? Did you hear that? Anyway, your thoughts, please. And David's first with us today. Hi, David.
Hi, Danny. I just want to talk about, it's just been on there in Tynwald regarding Mr. Hooper and the debate about health. And I'm quite ashamed of 3 politicians who voted against it. And of course, because you don't get it on Manx Radio, but I'm sure one of them was Miss Edge from Onken. Because I was listening to degrading what has gone on in the past. And I'm a pure example, and there are others out there who went through the system when they had funding given to do hips and knees. And 18 months ago, I had a new hip done through Synaptic. Everybody I talk to, and I see somebody struggling all the time, I sit down and say to him, what's wrong with you, whatever. And I just want to put out there too, it was a great involvement from an external company coming into the Isle of Man to do specific operations to bring that list down. And I'm just embarrassed when politicians are squabbling, throwing stones in the pond just for the sake of a headline or to do something different, and they're not engaging with the future of the Isle of Man.
And what do you think? What would you think was the motivation for that?
I don't know. It's just I just think it's the green-eyed monster syndrome there. I've got a bag of stones from the beach, so I might as well throw a few stones into the government instead of them doing something positive. We need the politicians to do something positive all over. And certainly, I know a lot of people who were in at the same time as me, and I was in there for 2 days, and they don't realise when somebody, occupational health, comes to your home, assesses where you are, whether you're living in a bungalow or terraced house or whatever, your needs for the future, crutches, which, you don't think of anything really. And I met the Scottish guy, there was 2 Scottish guys, the consultant and the anaesthetist, who explained to me what an epidural was. Now, I'm getting older, I didn't even know what it was about. And he assured me, don't worry, this is an easy procedure, you're young, you're fit, I've never smoked, and I packed in drinking when I was 24, but I'm no angel. And I just wonder what these politicians are putting messages out there to the rest of the population who want things done to improve their life. Health is a big issue in the Isle of Man, and we need people to have confidence when they go into hospital. There's always a risk, because I signed a form too that I may die, and that's the consent form you do sign, or the operation doesn't happen. But they were bob on, and I said it in the past, and I told the team when I left the hospital, I said, the only thing, you were great, but I couldn't understand the language you were talking, because it was Scottish.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that, David. Good to hear from you. Thanks. All right, it's 11 minutes past 12. I don't know whether you've received some treatment from the Synaptic team that were brought in, of course, external, really, as an outside contractor. I suppose you could call it a form of privatisation. They were brought in by Manx Care to get the waiting list down for knees and hips and cataracts and what have you, and that has been successfully done. Of course, it has cost a big chunk of money. And that, of course, is accounted for from Manx Care. But got any thoughts on it? Then get in touch. There are schools that should be closed, I think, says David, 375, Queg, Annika. But what's absent from that report is any reference to savings that could be made at University College Isle of Man, which is by far the most expensive educational setting operated by Department of Education, Sport and Culture. £15 million for University College Isle of Man. And also yesterday we were talking about newspapers and the fact that Ellen Vannin Fuels EVF, which operate petrol stations, some of the petrol stations around the Isle of Man, we're talking about asking their customers about whether they should stock newspapers or not, purely because I think now we don't have them delivered by air anymore, and they come by boat, and some miss the boat because of being printed late, and sometimes when the boat doesn't go, we don't get them, and once a month, whether it's maintenance or a hazardous cargo, we don't get the papers. Is it something that these petrol stations should just give up on and not stock newspapers anymore? But Pat says there are plenty of shops that sell newspapers. True, obviously, but the wholesaler, White's, the wholesaler, has to pay for them to come over, and then they subsequently distribute them. They get their money that way as a wholesaler. I love reading the newspaper. I would hate it if we couldn't get newspapers on the Isle of Man, says Dino on 630. And closing schools is nothing. St Mark's, St Jude's, St Mackle, Patrick, Santon, St Thomas's, says 762. We have closed schools before. I suppose it depends how far you go, doesn't it? And you heard Daphne Kane in the news saying that we are the Isle of Man. We're not any town in Ireland or Scotland or Wales or England. We are the Isle of Man. And depends how far you think those country schools are. In our nature, what makes the Isle of Man Manx, that we do have small country schools, and probably, per pupil, they are more expensive than the ones where you get 800 to 1,000 pupils in. Probably they are, but is that a reason to get rid of them? Some people say it is, obviously. And Sue said, look, if there's such a big surplus of teachers, why are class sizes still so big? If the reporters lumped class teachers and special needs teachers together, there would appear to be a surplus. By the way, it's the number of people, not the amount. Thanks for the grammar lesson, Sue, 768. Always appreciate it. Think about all the trees that are saved by not having newspapers, says Des. Would you miss the newspapers? And 291 points out newspapers have two uses. You can read them, and then you can save them and light the fire with them. 291. Surely the newspaper issue about all going online is about accessibility to all, isn't it? So surely they should carry on printing newspapers to enable accessibility to all, as not everybody has access to the internet. Well, it is, but they're all private businesses, aren't they? So... I'll see. Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. What a beautiful day.
It's all right. Well, there's a few dark clouds, but it looks okay.
Well, it's nice and warm. It's not raining. It's not flooding. It's not... the reservoir looked all right at Solby when I passed there the other day. And air traffic should be all right now, as far as I can see. A little bit of chaos this morning. My recommendation to keep the ATC in good fettle is 10,000 IUs of vitamin D each every day.
I'm sure they're hanging on every word.
I'd like to comment on Julie Edge's statement in relation to government spending, and also Phil Gorn's revelation that Jersey and Guernsey spend twice as much on children's education compared to the Isle of Man. But something that Julie said was interesting. She said, we've got massive funds for climate change. £40 million went into that. It's not getting utilised. Utilise what funds we have, divide them up correctly. Climate change is a target for years and years away. Make sure that funding is allocated correctly. Now, I agree with Julie on that. But I also noticed yesterday in Tynwald that only 4 ministers voted against net zero policy moving forward. But it seems timely that Paul Burgess is on the Isle of Man to give a refreshingly different viewpoint on net zero and wind turbines. And while I was thinking of this, I noticed a news story from Australia, which seems quite interesting and timely. Former Green Party candidate Steve Nowakowski, who also co-founded Rainforest Reserves Australia, is now trying to stop all wind farms, calling it lunacy and a scam. Right now, he's fighting against the move by wind farm companies to clear 148,000 acres of ancient remnant forest across Queensland, including construction of 4,600 kilometres of large heavy-duty haulage roads for transporting the wind turbine components, towers and blades. He says clearing and fragmenting of some of the best habitat left in Australia is a delusional act that won't save the climate. He also said, I have never seen such collusion in my environmental career as I do now between big business, non-governmental organisations and state government in what I consider the greatest land grab of the age, with the bulk of wind farm projects already having slipped through while everyone else was sleepwalking.
Well, at the moment, it stands as a political orthodoxy, isn't it? I mean, that's the way that the future is mapped out for us in the future, including on the Isle of Man. And quite what we do about it, quite how much influence we, the voter, has, the civilian has, we don't really know.
Well, like I mentioned the other day to you, the IPCC 1,000-page report, the AR6, the assessment report, we don't really see that. What we get is the summary for policymakers, short form bullet points, which have to be curated and given the green light by politicians. So there's a kind of a gap there. And, you know, when we look at the messaging, we're not seeing too many proper scientists talking to us. We're seeing, you know, Al Gore and John Kerry and this type of person. But, you know, when you look at the list of scientists that are against this, it's about 7-1 that are against it. If you look at the Clintel organization, I mean, you've got several Nobel laureates, you've got geophysicists, astrophysicists, you name it. And it just seems that none of them seem to be getting a word in edgeways compared to politicians.
Well, we'll see tomorrow, because obviously Paul Burgess is going to be on. Obviously Lamara Crane, leader of the Isle of Man Green Party, will be on. And I think Paul Burgess is it tomorrow night? He's at the Legion, isn't he, in Douglas?
Correct, yeah. Doors open at 7, at 7:30.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Julian. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers. Bye.
All right. It's 19 minutes past 12. Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Howard with us. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I see Julie Edge is making waves again. I know herself. I think it was Chris Thomas and another one. They were calling themselves the alternative government. They're stepping back from the mess that they've made. It's not on their wellies anymore. But her supporting the closure of 8 schools, which was correctly thrown out, because a lot of the schools, as being an island, are part of an island community system. We are not. Who come over and done this? Were they from big cities? Were they from areas where they have huge collective state schools? And the efficiency that they have is so much that a lot of the schools in the UK are not funded wholly by the government there, but by local councils and education committees, etc. But here, the biggest percentage of our schools are under the umbrella of the Isle of Man government. And the likes of Julie Edge, she wants to look, as I say, position, heal thyself, and the government here have wasted that much money in the last 10 years. They could have built another half dozen schools, but they've closed the main road down, the main road school. They've closed Timble Street down. They've closed Park Road down. Ballachameen has about 300 to 400 pupils over the prescribed numbers. Bemahig, I believe, is also getting to the point where it's overcrowded. And there they are, wanting to close schools down and encouraging, in the other hand, people to come to the island with children. Well, I was watching on YouTube the other night. I came across it accidentally, and it's the lad that was over here racing, and Dean Harrison and his wife. She was saying how brilliant the schools are. Her children, I think there's two of them, are going to Laxey School, and they think it's brilliant. And she said something that you've not heard for a little while, something that we haven't heard of for ages when we were living back at home. Children calling around the house and saying, is Fred or Charlie coming out to play? And that's what the community spirit is about. These people living in big cities forget about this. She said that we haven't heard anything like that for ages, and now the children, they're living in Laxey, and the children are going to Laxey School, and they're coming to the house to see if her and Dean's children are coming out to play. Now that speaks volumes of the safe, sensible environment that we have here on the island, and some firm from across just wanting to make a fast buck has come over recommending 6-8 schools that they know nothing about, and our politician, our MHK for one particular area, I don't know which one she's in, but she's agreeing with it all. And as they look inwards and look at the money that the government have wasted on big projects, and classic examples is the promenade, the Liverpool landing stage, a small fortune down the airport doing the extra taxiway, that was 9 million. And they just throw money after these silly programs and think that the glory's going to hit them. But this time, I've not got a lot of faith in Alf Cannon. He's not high on my Christmas card list. But he was right in what he said, that this is an island community and we should be looking after our children. Educate our children so they can go abroad and not sit here with spuds and herring for the rest of their lives.
Okay, all right, we appreciate that. Howard, thanks for calling.
Take care, bye now.
Bye-bye now, 23 minutes past 12. You've hit a nerve, says Texter 502, regarding not getting a courier delivered. I live in the south. I haven't had a courier for 2 years. And I rang to complain. They told me they couldn't get enough people to deliver the courier in the south, and I'm sure they're selling advertising on the promise that most, if not all, households receive a courier on the Isle of Man. How many households never ever see a courier? Texter 502 hasn't had a courier for 2 years, and I live in the centre of Douglas, and I get one probably 3 weeks out of every 4. And obviously sometimes if the boat's late, you're getting them at weekends as well. So, and obviously the Courier is a free newspaper. It's not one you're paying for. But point taken. I hope the greater listening public might help me with my queries, says Roger. On the Newcastle Town Road, about 200 yards south from Quarterbridge, there's a lay-by on top of a bridge spanning a river. Is it the dew or the glass or both? The area is known as Millmount. For quite some time now, there's been an assortment of HGV lorries or commercial vehicles seemingly permanently parked there. There are weeds and general debris where the vehicles are parked, and it looks like an eyesore. My question is, says Roger, is this legal? At busy times at the NSC or the TT, this area, although relatively small, would provide some welcome parking relief. Does anybody know about this? This is the Newcastle Town Road, 200 yards south from Quarterbridge, the lay-by on top of the bridge spanning, known as Millmount. The HGV lorries and the commercial vehicles growing their own moss underneath. Text to 470, Andy, something needs to be done about the sting packet prices, £170 for 2 on a day trip to Liverpool. £85 return. Is that right? £85? Foot passenger return. Big Mike says, I'm not sure where that cruise ship in the harbour is off to next, but you can guarantee it won't have a beach that smells as bad as ours. It's good for you, Mike. I had a new knee, says Teddy the Viking. It's been the best thing I've had done, just like taking a battery out and putting a new one in. No trouble, no problems. Fantastic. Teddy the Viking. Thank you, Teddy. And I'm glad that Julie Edge is no longer a minister, says Alison. Anybody who doesn't understand island life and the importance of village communities should not be in politics on an island. I used to admire Julie Edge, but not now. It's just my opinion. Well, your opinion's as valid as everybody's, Alison, and we thank you for it. Do you think enough is being spent on education on the Isle of Man? Well, Julie Edge, and she was DESC, Department of Education, Sport and Culture Minister. This report published this week looks at our current funding system, found that the amount we spend per child is the lowest in the British Isles. In fact, it's almost half of our fellow Crown dependencies, Jersey and Guernsey. This is what Julie Edge had to say.
That was quite alarming. That wasn't actually part of any original discussions with the organisation, but it was pushed for because I felt that Council of Ministers did need to understand the difference in the spend, but we also need to understand the differences in our education systems. Isle of Man's fully inclusive. That's why we've got an additional educational needs, additional funding required, because we're doing a fully inclusive education system. Do I agree with that? Yes, I do, but you've got to fund it. No point shying away. If you've got a policy and it's the way you want to go, you've got to fund it.
And surely that makes it worse that additional educational needs in these other areas are funded separately. So specifically in the Isle of Man instance, we include additional educational needs, and we're still the bottom of all the UK countries and the Channel Islands. That's quite worrying as a figure.
It is, and it's certainly decreased since I was working within education. And obviously I would, having had that experience, put ideas forward as to where the funding could come from, where the additional funding could come from, without making significant changes in education. Clearly they might not have been liked. We've got massive funds for climate change. £40 million went into that. It's not getting utilised. We've heard today in the House that they're funding people to be employed for 2-year contracts out of a climate change fund. Utilise what funds we have. Divide them up correctly. Climate change is a target for years and years away. Make sure that funding's allocated. And, it's a suggestion I made. Maybe that's why we have a new minister, that we should be taking funds from elsewhere and supporting education. It's key to the future of our island to make sure everybody's got that best opportunity for a good education and good skills to go forward.
In your estimation, then, this is the reason you were sacked?
Well, there's many reasons. We're debating swimming pool. I don't actually really know, Phil, to be honest. I've done an amazing job, is the response I got from the Chief Minister on the day, but clearly he wasn't comfortable with some of the challenges that I was putting forward. But wouldn't any minister challenge for additional funds for an education department, all of our young people and the staff? I certainly would, and I will continue to do so.
That's Julie Edge, former Education Minister, of course, one of the Onken MHKs. If you want to find out more, you can go to manxradio.com. The report's on there. It's on the news story that was posted yesterday. Stop whinging about the cost of education. This is Anonymous, who just said the value of a local school is incalculable. Why should a child travel many miles to a school if there's a decent school within walking distance? This push to blindly follow the UK in cutting services to the bone for the sake of some notional financial saving is misguided, says this correspondent. Education is an investment in our future. The real problem is what happens after education's completed, when there are poor employment prospects, a lack of affordable housing, and a sense of stagnation in the direction of our island life. And thanks also to Calvin, who said these people from the companies across must rub their hands with glee when they hear the Isle of Man wants another report. They can cut and paste a report from somewhere else and send it to us. They think they're educating the natives. They simply don't understand the Isle of Man, and I don't know why our politicians continue to fall for it. No newspapers, no scaremongering, says Perfect Texter 005. In particular, what you're talking about. What price do you put on education, says Des. I don't know. Well, the trouble with education, it's a non-tangible outcome, isn't it? It's not like making loaves of bread or bolts or books. Education's non-tangible. Nobody knows if it's worked for years and years and years. Some of the most people who have the most education end up derelicts in life, and some people who don't have much education end up millionaires, billionaires even. So what is education, and what price should we put on it? The Isle of Man has an education system. as Julie Edge said, we seem to be spending less per pupil. So how do we figure out whether we're getting value for money? Orthopaedic waiting list has increased from 6 to 9 months now for knee replacements since the consultation appointment in January 2024, says D. Get Synaptic back, says D. We live in Port Erin. It's 2 years since we had a courier delivered. Is that true? If you're in the south, are you getting a courier? We get a courier in Castletown without fail, says Paul. And we used to get a courier every week, says Mark. Haven't had a courier for ages. Rang to advise them. Still nothing. I suspect maybe they're being dumped by somebody. It has happened before. Thank you, Mark. Good to hear from you. To the lines.
Hello, this is Nigel Sperring. I'd just like to comment on Mrs. Edge's answers today in Tynwald. The emotional side that she came across regarding healthcare, not only from a personal side as a parent and a patient, but also as a minister. And myself, having treatment through our hospital 8 years ago, I'm so glad I did then, listening to obviously the problems we have now. She came across absolutely fantastic, and I think the ministers need to take account of what she said. And also the health minister, I think, needs to go home tonight and re-listen to her comments, because I think the Isle of Man has a very big problem. And all ministers to go home tonight and to listen to what she said. We're very keen on paying out compensation on a number of accounts and wasting money in different areas. We are vastly millions over budget in Liverpool with the terminal, which is still not open and probably won't be open, in my own personal opinion, for many, many months to come. Millions and millions of pounds over budget, and listening to Miss Edge today, how crippled our health service is, and we can't look after our own people. So ministers, I think you need to go home and rethink some of your own positions, because we need to get this island back on a better track to get our health service in the way it should be run. That's my own personal opinions, but it was very strong on what she said today, and I take my hat off to her. And thank you, Julie, for coming across like you did.
Feeding friends and family with the finest the island has to offer. The Forge Smokehouse and Grill, Santon. Fresh Manx produce marinated, slowly cooked, grilled and smoked to perfection right here and served in a gorgeous setting. Just walk in anytime, no booking needed. Parties, family gatherings and weddings, the perfect venue for any occasion. And don't forget our large marquee for any event. Visit theforge.im and see.
Out and about this summer, EVF service stations have everything you need to make the most of it. Hot and cold food, chilled wine and beers, barbecue essentials and more. You can even pick up your lottery tickets at our stations across the island. Fill up, fuel up with Ellen Vannin Fuels. Visit us at evf.co.im. Stocks and offers may vary between locations.
The race is on to help local charity Arlo's Adventure, and you can help win it. It's the KPMG Promenade Relay, Friday 12th of July along Douglas Seafront, with 100% of entry fees and sponsorship going to Arlo's Adventure, helping Manx residents needing hospital treatment in the UK and supporting bereaved families through child or pregnancy loss. Get your relay team of 2, 3 or 4 people together to tackle the 10k course, or go it alone over 5k. Entries close 10th July. Visit kpmg.com/CDS for details and registration. The KPMG Promenade Relay, supported by your nation station, Manx Radio.
Hello, it's Ben here, inviting you to join me for the bigger Manx Radio breakfast every weekday morning from July the 1st. We'll be here from 6 a.m. to start the day with the latest weather and travel. Sean will be here to keep us up to date with all the morning's main stories. We'll be out and about around the island to find out more about those stories, and we'll have your reaction to the big news of the day. There'll also be plenty of good music and a couple of competitions to get your day going. Listen again to Manx Radio from July the 1st.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Past my 24 minutes before 1. You want to call 66 13 68 to have your say. Text and email. Text and WhatsApp is 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. It's Wednesday, and that means we're digging into our 60th anniversary archive. Wednesday is always looking at Kelly's Eye. Peter Kelly and the late David Callister. And today, Peter and David are outside Colebourn shop in Douglas, which leads to a conversation about the founder of Colebourn's, T.H. Colebourn, playing a crucial part in the start of Manx Radio. T.H. Colebourn was a powerhouse of an MHK. In fact, just looking out of the window at Manx Radio, at one point, he wanted a chairlift from Douglas up to Douglas Head. Inspiring man, T.H. Colebourn. Anyway, that's on Kelly's Eye after Mannin Line today. No newspapers, says Andy, leads to and plays to the needs of dictators and fascist control of people, and our population consumes propaganda and false news. It's just what Donald Trump, Mr. Putin, Mr. Kim and Mr. Jinping seemingly all have an agenda. Don't all listeners think that? Well, it's a fact, Andy. Thank you for that, Andy on 667. It is a fact, a stone cold fact, that the circulation of newspapers is dropping like a stone. It's a fact that within 5 years, some newspapers could just go. Newspaper circulations, in fact, if you ever fly to London, you used to get an Evening Standard free of charge. I mean, at one time, you used to purchase the Evening Standard in London. Now, you got it free. It's gone. It's gone. It's all online. The Evening Standard has gone online. Most big newspapers, most big cities that used to have a morning daily and an evening daily have all merged. In Liverpool, in Birmingham, lots of other places, they've all gone. So what's going to happen to newspapers on the Isle of Man? They've been an integral part of the information transfer on the island since printing started. And some fine newspapers, some great journalists that we've had on the Isle of Man, that simply won't happen anymore. The newspaper employs a tiny fraction of the amount of journalists that they used to hire, and no photographers really to speak of. Will you miss it? We need to buy meat at independent butchers, not supermarkets, says Andy. We were talking about butchers yesterday. And whatever happened to that green elephant of ours? Oh, the cabbage, says Phil in Oncon. Do you remember the cabbage, that diesel train that we needed but hasn't seen active service for years? Another waste of taxpayers' cash. Thanks also to Mark, who pointed out Julian was talking about Julian was talking about the quality of meat at Robinson's at Ballapaddock. And Mark said Julian said he was at Robinson's, New Delhi. I didn't know they had a shop in India. I don't think they did. But thanks. And also a message in from Dave regarding yesterday, a massive cruise ship in the bay, but Cruise Isle of Man didn't have a horse trams on their itinerary. They did. The horse trams were open yesterday because it was a Tuesday. So surely, says Dave, there's an anti-horse tram agenda within the civil service. We'll see. Text, email, call and WhatsApp, and a message from Vi. Hi, Vi, who just said, what is the situation regarding COVID on the Isle of Man? Should we, shouldn't we? What are we supposed to do? Well, Vi, the UK Health Security Agency recently confirmed that this new variant of COVID-19 is in circulation there. Public Health on the Isle of Man isn't testing for variants here, so they can't confirm whether COVID cases here are from the group of variants known as FLiRT. It's not a joke, it's actually called FLiRT. COVID remains a notifiable disease in the Isle of Man, so any positive cases detected in the hospital or healthcare settings are reported to Public Health. As of April 2024, UK data showed an increasing number of infections of FLiRT variants, with the UK HSA stating it was continuing to monitor data in the UK and internationally. A rise in infections after lots of visitors were on the Isle of Man, with larger numbers of people socialising in groups is to be expected, i.e. TT, according to Public Health. The authority says anybody who feels unwell should stay away from others, particularly those who are considered medically vulnerable. Members of the public, that's you, are urged to take measures to prevent the spread of illness, including washing your hands regularly, we're back to that, and covering your mouth when you cough or sneeze. So we're not on sanitisers or masks yet, but that apparently is the advice from Public Health on the Isle of Man. We always buy newspapers, says 025, and we always buy Manx produce, keeping it local. Isn't this a conversation about newspapers just free advertising for selling them, says Robert. Well, I don't know what you call it, Robert. I believe in newspapers. I think we should have newspapers. I'm all for everybody reading as much as possible. So at the point, it's the old thing, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. If there ever comes a day when we don't have newspapers on the Isle of Man, can you imagine that? I mean, it is a generational thing. Most people under 40 years of age don't read newspapers. And lots of people get their newspapers online, look at tablets and laptops and what have you, or computers, sometimes on smartphones. But is it the same? No couriers in Glenvine either, says 627. Whereabouts in Glenvine? There's a pile of couriers at the main Spar shop in Ramsey. The trouble is customers aren't allowed them as they're for paper boys, and they don't take what they need. They take the lot, and you're not suggesting they don't deliver them and just put them in a bin. Crikey. You think you were asking the staff to donate a kidney when I asked to take a courier from the Spar in Ramsey. My 2 daughters and wife and 2 granddaughters went day trip to Liverpool, nearly £500, says text of 797. How much is a day trip on the boat to Liverpool nowadays? We haven't had a courier in East Douglas since 2022. I live on Empire Terrace. Not had a courier there since. Our education spend per pupil is a disgrace, says texter Treble Low. We have no hope of getting working families to move here with this approach. And I guess this really does bring into sharp relief the fact that we have an island plan. We want to get 15,000 more people here. And yet, if some of these people are families with children who decide to move here, what do we say? What's the educational offering to them? What will they think about us? I mean, let us put aside the fact that we've lost some hospitality venues. And in terms of venues for young people, or certainly children. I mean, at one time there were big party venues on the Isle of Man. There were at least 3 big party venues on the Isle of Man when I first moved over here at the end of the 1990s. And they've gone. At one time in the Castle Mona, remember the bowling alley, arbuckles, facilities for children there. In the old Summerland, the second Summerland, there were party venues as well. And then the one that was next to, was it Funland? The one that was next to the Crescent Leisure Centre, there was a party venue in there. Those 3 have all gone. So if you're looking for party venues for young children, admittedly there's Dragon's Castle, but you can't squeeze everybody in there. So how do we join all this together, and so that the 15,000 people who come here will think this is a great place to be rather than what's this? I couldn't believe my ears when I heard they were considering closing 8 schools here, says 068. I had to check, and it wasn't April the 1st. I thought it was April Fool's Day. Just when you think they've lost the plot, they lose the plot even more. My wife and I paid £127 return from Liverpool in July, which I think is okay. That's what, £63 each return. 30-odd pounds a single, that is. Are the problems here inefficient schools down to poor teaching standards and equally poor head teachers? and out-of-their-depth school governors. Some appointments have only been a pension top-up, so some can retire on an enhanced pension, says Francis. I'm sure you have documentation to prove that, Francis. Is that true? Wasn't Julie Edge all for green issues within schools with the installation of suspended ceilings to save energy? A weekend trip to Liverpool, £85, says Steve. I've just checked, £170 for two people. Not good for people on low incomes. I can't believe the price. And Dick says, I think Julie Edge is right. In the budget, we gave another £10 million to climate change and the hole in the ozone layer. I think that's fixed. Has the hole in the ozone layer gone? Or is it back? But Dr. Allenson gave $6 and a bit million to the DOI to fix holes in the roads. We've got our priorities completely the wrong way round. But it won't alter as there are votes in climate change, and our current MHKs are more worried about losing their seats with the disastrous administration we have at the moment than fixing holes in our roads. The opinion of Dick.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
I began to struggle with the stairs, but I didn't want to leave our family home. So my daughter told me about Acorn Stair Lifts and their new showroom in Douglas. I was able to try the stair lifts and find the right one for me and the home I love. They were so friendly. The whole process was hassle-free and they offered the whole package from installation to servicing. Choose the island's first choice for stair lifts. Acorn Stair Lifts, South Quay, Douglas.
Call Acorn Stair Lifts now on 672 414 or call into our Douglas showroom.
There's more than you think at Manx Glass and Glazing. As well as the supply and installation of quality windows, doors and conservatories, Manx Glass and Glazing can do a lot more with glass. If you need made-to-measure picture frame glass or a cut-to-size mirror, or how about glass shelves made to fit your space perfectly? You can also get glass cut for the tops of cabinets, units and bedside tables. For bespoke glass cutting and products, call Manx Glass and Glazing on 674 573. Manx Glass and Glazing. Quality and style since 1986.
We interrupt this broadcast to inform all our listeners about the huge range of bathrooms and showers on display at Pacesetter. Yes, you all know that Pacesetter is known as the island's largest tile store, but I'm here to tell you that their bathroom displays are truly inspirational. Visit Pacesetter on Harris Terrace, where you'll discover a fabulous collection of stylish bathrooms. There's something to suit everyone, with design available. Pacesetter bathrooms and showers to show off about.
It's time to start enjoying the garden. And from barbecues to garden furniture and machinery, tools and plants, Riley's Garden Centre has everything you need. Call Road Braddon and rileys.co.im or follow them on Facebook or Instagram.
From June 24th to June 28th, the celebration of 60 years of the people whose voices came to you out of the Manx radio speakers. The famous, the infamous, the voices that became part of the Manx way of life.
And Marge online too. Hello, Marge.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Now to get back to congratulations to Manx Radio on your Sunday morning programmes. They really are very good, you know, from 9 o'clock.
It continues the celebration of the nation station. 5 programmes starting on Monday. The Mannin Line revisited.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
11 minutes to 1. Andy's on now. Hi, Andy.
My Andy. How long does it take to change a light bulb?
Oh, crikey. Depends how big the light bulb is. Depends where you are. Why?
Well, I'm in Ramsey, and at the beginning of May, the MUA came along and put up a new lamp standard right next to the old one. Then they disappeared for about 8 days.
Hello? Oh, Andy's disappeared, along with the light bulb. You got me hooked there, Andy. Tell us about it. Laurie should just look up at Noble's Hospital. It's not the money you put into health, it's what you do with it. But whilst Manx Care can afford to change the sign outside the management office from saying management suite left to the one saying management executive left, wonder where all the money went. Maybe Laurie should look at the next time he walks underneath it. Thank you, Richard. Good to hear from you. And a message also saying, what really does my head in is that the Steam Packet Company have perks for employees. Employees get a day trip for £5 return. I'm a government worker and expected to pay full price. Something needs to be done about this. Well, they've always been perks, haven't there, for Steam Packet employees? It's part of their terms and conditions. They get perks. But I don't think that... I think that £5 has been the same for years and years and years. So how much it is now, I don't know. Maybe any Steam Packet worker could tell us anonymously if you want. What are the perks? How much do you get? What sort of travel do you get? I mean, most transport companies that you work for, you will always get transport perks. But we told them, I see the point. Just a quick word about this Saturday. Meet your MHK this Saturday. Douglas Central surgery is at All Saints Church Hall, Alexander Drive in Douglas from 2 till 4. Now, this is rescheduled from Saturday the 8th. It's a fortnight later because of TT. Drop in and meet MHK's Chris Thomas and Anne Corlett, All Saints Church Hall, Alexander Drive, 2 till 4 on Saturday. And also on Saturday, meet the middle MHKs, Jane Paul Wilson and Stu Peters at the Brullo Suite, which is downstairs at the Comis Hotel, Mount Murray in Santon from 2 till 4. So they'd love to see you. Douglas Central MHK's All Saints Church Hall in Douglas, 2 till 4, and middle MHK's Jane Paul Wilson and Stu Peters at the Comis Hotel in Mount Murray from 2 till 4 as well. We need local solutions for local problems, and those solutions need to be agreed by the Manx people, not from people across who don't appreciate the Isle of Man. Surely it's time the government took a long, hard look at itself and how it operates, not engaging off-island, so the so-called experts to basically feed MHKs with what they want to hear, and heads of government as well. We need proper solutions, says Ian. Andy's back. What was the story about the light bulb?
Yeah, and we must have got cut off. The MUA came and put a new lamp standard up at the beginning of May, next door to the old one. Nothing happened for about 8 days. Somebody came along, dug a hole, and fiddled around somewhere inside, disappeared. That night, the old light was out. So we've had no light since then. I know TT was in the middle, but this morning somebody's come along.
Whereabouts in Ramsey is this, exactly?
This is Bircham Avenue Close, the footpath, the quite wide footpath behind the flats. This morning they've come along and cut the old lamp standard down. The hole is still there, fenced off. So whether we're going to have lights now, I don't know. But it seems a long time. Why couldn't they, when they first came along, unhook the old one, done it then, fitted the new one?
That would be logical that they do the complete job, wouldn't it?
Well, you'd think so. But it's 6 weeks now.
Okay, and just again, it's Bircham
Avenue Close.
Bircham Avenue Close in the dark.
Yeah.
Right. Okay,
well,
all right.
The footpath at the back.
Yeah.
One other little thing.
Yeah.
Well, when you think of the ministers and the civil service, remember an old programme called Yes Minister?
Oh, that's crikey. Yes, that's right. Yes. Sir Humphrey and all that. Thanks for calling today. Bircham Avenue Close and the light gone out. Right. Tomorrow, Lamara Crane's in. Lamara's the leader of the Manx Green Party. She's also on with Paul Burgess, who's appearing at the Manx Legion tomorrow night as well. Paul's been an hydrologist and working in the climate industry for over 50 years, so we'll hear what he has to say. Basically, he thinks that electricity is going to shoot up in price. So we'll hear that tomorrow. And Friday, Laurie Hooper, Health and Social Care Minister. On Monday, Claire Barber and Scott Gallagher from DEFA will be in. So tune it in tomorrow at high noon on Manx Radio. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones. Looks like a half-decent day. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
WINT 60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
Kelly's Eye, brought to you by Ellis Brown Architects.
Peter, what's Kelly's Eye looking at today?
Well, I think it's somebody in hospital, I'm not too sure.
I'm actually looking through a shop window from across the road, and I'm looking at a television, and it could be Holby City, or it could be Emergency Ward 10, but now a whole family have stood watching it, so we can't see through them. But up above it, there's a big sign that says Colebourn, time to rent, and LCD or plasma TV here. And we're looking at the top of Victoria Street. T.H. Colebourn, I think he was always referred to as T.H. Colebourn, although he's Harold. Born in 1897, and through learning Morse code, when the First World War came along, of course, he entered into the signals unit or whatever it was. And I gather he was actually wounded, lost sight in one eye, which a lot of people didn't know.
Yes.
But then, after the First World War, he set up, like others, would make their own wireless sets.
Yes.
The cabinets were made by some local joiners, cabinet makers, Bell, Bridson and Lord. And then, of course, gradually he went from Castle Street and came here to Victoria Street. And it was a firm that grew and grew. And, of course, he had these red vans that went round everywhere with Colebourn on the side and an aerial sticking up, because all his vans were linked by radio. And what is now Manx Radio was their big workshop.
That's right, it was. And Manx Radio is a key to T.H. Colebourn as well, because he became an MHK, having started an action group in the middle 50s with Clifford Irving and other people. His son Roy Colebourn told me that on Finch Road they used to have a hoarding that they used in the winter time. And on that hoarding, one of the signs they put up was, wanted a new bunch of keys to open the door to prosperity, I think.
Very clever.
And as far as Manx Radio is concerned, he was the key member of the House of Keys to get Manx Radio going in the first place. I mean, he drove that very hard.
Well, he drove it, and there was a picture of him driving the little David Brown tractor, which I think came from the Airports Board, of which he was chairman, driving past the grandstand, towing the trailer in which Manx Radio started, but I've since learned he didn't actually drive it all the way. He was very good for publicity, and he caught up with it and swapped with the driver.
Yes.
But no, he was well ahead of his time, and of course Colebourn's at one point had shops in Ramsey, Port Eyre and elsewhere on the island.
A long way from homemade radio sets to the gadgets of today.
We have. He was a man who was tuned in.
Many of the most iconic buildings around the island have been designed by Ellis Brown Architects. Keep up with Ellis Brown today on Facebook or via ellisbrown.in.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.